This conference will now be recorded.
Please turn on your cameras, just so that like we already have that prepared and we're ready to go.
This conference will now be recorded.
We're honored to have you guys all here today as we touch on how to overcome adversity, how to build to your full potential, and how to be the best version of yourself. So yes, we will now go on to the webinar etiquette for our meeting. So IT, please move on to the next slide. So essentially throughout the meeting, this hour and a half that we'll be together, we ask that you guys are always on mute, and please to remain on mute throughout the entire roundtable. Ensure that your camera is off unless you are a speaker. So right now, I ask that all my speakers turn on their cameras so we can see you guys' faces and everyone can become acquainted with y'all. And when you ask your questions, please ask them in the chat box only. Please put your name and your country that you are from. So during our Q&A section, we will select questions or comments that will best fit the theme of the webinar. So please make sure that your questions are tailored to a specific speaker if you would like to, or to just a general question that you have overall pertaining to the theme. If you are asked to speak, which you won't be, our IT manager for the day will be and asking the questions for you guys. So all you need to do as audience members is just type in the chat who you would like to, a question that you would like to ask. So yeah, now we're going to introduce the official webinar. Next slide, please, IT. Next slide, please, IT. Okay, so I think there might be a lag on that end. So yeah, the year is now 2020, as all of you know, and some of us are most likely living through one of the most uncertain and unique periods of our lifetimes. For some individuals, the past 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic has presenting the haunting realities of life, whether it be grief, job or food insecurity, displacement, and many other hardships that have become illuminated because we've essentially been forced to reckon with our lives during this time. In Africa, where governments spend less than 4% of their gross domestic product on social protection programs, as opposed to the global average of 13%, people are now much more susceptible to infection, illness, and hardships. According to the ILO in 2020, only 17% of Africans had access to at least one social protection. So for many Africans, battling with the heightened risk of adverse domestic experiences and an overall depleted sense of agency and control over their lives, the ability to receive assistance from their governments was very slim. Though the pandemic has presented unforeseen transformations to life, it has also provided a rare opportunity to reimagine the effects of adversity on our mentality. The Youth Alliance for Leadership and Development Africa, YALDA, is thus issuing a call of action to undergo a rebirth of your spirit in order to build resiliency and break free from self-imposed and societal limits. YALDA recognizes that the hardships and stressors in our lives, which have only been worsened due to the pandemic, can manifest as fatigue and disinterest to continue achieving occupations, whatever they may be, and that afford us our greatest happiness and content. So through this webinar, YALDA hopes to inspire and prepare audiences to explore the unexplored domains of their prowess by uncovering their second wind. This phenomenon forces individuals ready to push through obstructions, seize any goals they hope for, and it does this through sources of mental and physical strengths that have never been taxed by our bodies. YALDA hopes to aid individuals to overcome these mental barriers and reclaim sources of motivation that have been lost and push them to live below the surface of themselves and their stressors for greater heights of productivity and excellence. Now I will read the bios of our distinguished guest speakers and we will go through them. So IT, please go on to Mame, who is our first speaker of the day. Ms. Mame Dahir is an adept public health professional with 9 years of academic and professional experience in healthcare. She serves as a policy analyst with the Government of Government of Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada Division. Recently, Mame was appointed Associate Editor for the Canadian Review Editorial Law Proposal, where she assesses and examines Canada's national undergraduate law journal. Remarkably, Mame is the founder of a grassroots initiative called the Power of Love Foundation Canada. This organization services and resources to Black women and girls in low-income settings with the aim of improving their overall well-being. She is also the founder of a public speaking group called Silver Tongue Academy that helps people to effectively and confidently communicate their visions and ideas. Mame acquired a Master's of Public Health in Social and Behavioral Sciences from the University of Toronto, alongside a collaborative specialization in global health, health services, and policy research. Comprehensively, Mame's lifelong goal is to impact members of the society through community engagement, mentorship, and service. We welcome you, Mame. Next, our next speaker, and sorry, Mame is of Ghanaian descent and she currently resides in Canada. Our next speaker will be Haja Aissatou Ba of Sierra Leone. Haja Aissatou Ba is an environmental activist and recent graduate from Skidmore College in New York. She graduated with a BA in Environmental Studies. She is currently doing her fellowship with Al Kuni Center in Kenya through the Princeton and Africa Fellowship. Haja is very passionate about the environment and issues affecting women. As a pioneering ecofeminist, Haja is the founder of Uman for Uman, a social enterprise that produces and sells reusable sanitary pads for girls and women in Sierra Leone. Haja recently delivered an inspiring address at the TEDx Wallace Johnson Street event in Sierra Leone with the theme Lights Don't Come, where she and 10 others changemakers reflected on thinking outside of the box to live sustainably and the importance of undergoing an enlightenment to live a life powered by disrupting norms for the better. We thank you, Haja, for being here. Next, our next speaker will be YALDA's very own Grace Diambu, a psychologist of Kenya. Grace is an accredited psychologist working throughout the African continent. Ms. Diambu specializes in counseling individuals that suffer from anxiety and depression via telemental health. Her expertise on emotional and psychological distress helps clients restore their mental balance one step at a time. We welcome you, Grace, for being part of our webinar, and thank you very much. IT, can you please move on to the next slide? We will now welcome Rani Wakulu of Kenya. Rani is a client team leader at Influx Kenya. Mr. Wakulu specializes in building support teams across 6 countries to serve various brands globally. Additionally, he is a co-founder of a social enterprise, Diversity Youth Group. He prides himself on empowering the youth to take responsibility for their lives and achieve their dreams. He is also an instrumentalist and a vocalist. We're very honored to have Mr. Wakulu here today. Ronald Kawadwa, is our next speaker and next and final speaker of our webinar. Ronald believes in the vast potential of people. His passion lies in facilitating self-discovery, self-development, and self-actualization. He believes people are the start and the end of any societal development. Mr. Kawadwa is the Group Managing Director at Group Africa, where he informs audiences that authenticity and continuous improvement are not alien concepts to Africa. Ronald also serves as a HR manager and project planning management specialist with 15 years of experience across 4 careers. Along with his booming professional career, Ronald acts as a member and chairman for a number of boards, including the Mengo Hospital Rotary Blood Bank, the Young African Leaders Initiative, and chairman of Danube Properties Inc. Dubai, member of Our Lady of Africa Group Schools, chairman of Kimanje Group Schools, and he also sits on the board of Paper Tools Limited and Coach Africa. Thank you very much, Mr. Ronald Kawadwa, for being here with us today. So this section of our webinar, we will now be going into the reason why we're all here today, to learn more about what is the second wind and sort of how to overcome adversity. So the question we pose to all of our speakers today is, in your experience, how can an individual discover their second wind? Are productivity and resiliency through unlocking the second wind definitive ways to achieve success and excellence? Do adversity and everyday obstacles play a role in preparing you to be catalysts of change? We ask that you answer this in 5 minutes total, and please do not go over this time. We will now ask Ms. Mame De Air to answer this question. Please unmute yourself, Mom.
Can you please put the question back on the slide?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just reading the question again.
That's fine.
Sorry, I think the question is off. Okay, so let's just keep it this way. Um, okay, so there's a lot of grammar going on in this question, so I'm just going to answer it as straightforward as possible. I think what the question is trying to divulge or to inquire, and I stand to be corrected, is ideally to see if productivity, resilience, adversities, and so on impact youth for change. Am I right?
Yes, that's essentially what we're trying to get at.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Um, Indubitably, I would say it definitely does. Productivity, resilience, as well as adversities, actually, they build capacity. They enable an individual to be able to go through a process where they acquire the skills, they acquire the knowledge, they acquire the ideal hands-on techniques and experience that would help them to be able to face any adversity, any change that comes your way. We all know that in life, change is inevitable, and it's very difficult for one person to go through change. However, I believe that once an individual is open to going through this process of building the resilience, when they're now faced with any catalyst of change, they're able to withstand any adversity that comes their way, and they're well prepared to face any changes that they come across, if I should put it that way. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that answer because it kind of touches on like how every day we're sort of like experiencing adversity, and no matter how hard you try to avoid it, we're always going to be faced with battles, and we'll have to like overcome these and try and find a way to reorient ourselves so that we can achieve the success. So thank you very much for your answer, Amame. We out now ask Ms. Haja Aistuba to answer the question to her best abilities.
Can you hear me now? Hi everyone. This sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. This is a very loaded question, and um, the word adversity and resilience comes up a lot, especially within the context of African youth. And I feel it's something a lot of people have tried to normalize. There's a saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Um, I totally disagree with that statement because I look at other countries, I look at other places I've been in, and I feel like they don't have those obstacles there, especially for girls and women, the things they go through. And sometimes, yes, in very rare cases, maybe 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10, you become successful after suffering or going through all these adversities. But in many cases, you die struggling. You end up through these adversities and being resilient, but still do not get the outcome like what you want. You end up not gaining your purpose. So I believe it doesn't, honestly, because as somebody who attended a government school in Sierra Leone, I was lucky to be one of among over 1,000 students that got a scholarship to go to Norway. I know friends of mine that dropped out of school who were really smart, but just because they couldn't afford college. I know friends who were very innovative, and they didn't end up, promoting their innovative career because the system is not sufficient. The system doesn't have enough resources for them to thrive. So I think the short answer to this question would be I actually believe it doesn't, but it's necessary because if you have a passion, if you have a goal, you have to believe in it. You have to work hard for it. But an idea without resources, an idea without the right platform for you to implement it just remains an idea. And I feel that is what many youth in the African continent face because they have all these amazing ideas, but then the government, the conditions in which we live, the situations do not provide enough resources for us to make our ideas a reality compared to people in the West or other countries which are more successful than our countries. Thank you.
No, that was an amazing answer, and I loved sort of your counter and opposing view of sort of the negative effects of adversity on our lives, which, as we all know, living in the African continent, we can face a lot of these in proportion to other countries living elsewhere. And I think ignoring this aspect or ignoring the adversities that we do face is a disadvantage to sort of like the change that we can create, because we need to know and need to sort of tell everyone that no, we face these challenges and we are stronger because of them. But sometimes we can break because of them, but it happens. But the goal is eventually, like during events like this, to build a community so that as everyone in our community is better off. Thank you very much, Haja, for that answer. And now we ask Ms. Grace Liambu to answer the question. Grace, can you hear? Are you still here? I think her connection is just a bit off. Yeah, we can't hear anything, Grace. Try again. It says that you're not muted, but
You can hear me.
okay, we can hear you now. Yes. Yeah, I think the
Okay. Well, hi everyone. I think just like Haja has said, this is a very loaded question. And when we're talking about second wind, we're talking about the ability to, have that energy again, to continue going, to keep going, to have to start again, to continue doing the things that seem difficult. And I think productivity and resilience can really help in that. But I think we also need to know that productivity on a day-to-day basis can look different. For some people, productivity entails certain things, and for others, it entails different things. So being able to define it for ourselves, what is productivity? Of course, resilience is about being able to thrive and to continue moving regardless of the challenges that face you. And yes, those are things that can help you in terms of developing the second wind. But in terms of adversity being a catalyst of change, I would say yes and no. Just because, yes, it can give you prime lessons of how to, maneuver because almost everything will be a challenge. Most people say, everything worthwhile is difficult. And so we will face challenges in our lives and in our day to day experiences. But I would say that not everyone has the same story. Each person may experience adversity in a different way. And so being able to acknowledge and accept that as individuals, seeing how your story can contribute to your change in your country, in your continent, and seeing how it can all tie in together. So being able to acknowledge where you are, being able to motivate yourself, and being able to surround yourself with positive people can be able to, keep you going and keep you remembering why you started. Yes.
No, I love these answers. They're so inspiring because it's really bringing the broad range of perspectives that are necessary for conversations like these. And I really liked what you said about productivity and how everyone's productivity is in different phases essentially, because we're all living through different realities of our own lives and face different obstacles that either put us back 10 steps or put us forward 10 steps. So again, like what you said, measuring where and like knowing where you are and how to best like orient and display your skills is very important, especially for the context of whatever change you're trying to create. So thank you very much, Grace. Now we ask Mr. Rani Wakulo to answer the question, and please turn on your camera while you're answering. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you can see me as well. I'm really happy to be here. So this is a very interesting question. It's a three-segmented question. So I want to really break it down in each part. And number one, we're asking about how can an individual discover their second wind. And as Miss Grace Nyambo highlighted, the second wind is about that renewed energy, that endurance when everything has hit a dead end. And in my experience, the first thing that comes is an individual's mindset and strategy for personal growth. Because when you have that individual mindset for growth, it's going to channel you, or rather fuel you, to actually go to that next level and say that you want to go ahead. You don't want to stop at where it seems like you've hit rock bottom. I love the introduction with regards to the season we've come from surfacing from COVID-19, the effects it has had on the economies, job losses, and so much, and so on. And coming from that season to that point where somebody may hit the rock bottom, you need to have that mindset of personal growth and that fuel and drive to be able to actually go ahead and reach towards that second wind. Number two is other people's experience. And personally, I believe when we are here in this event, just hearing one another's experience will actually fuel you to get to that second wind. I also love the aspect of effort, because when you have that effort, when you want that drive, when you want to actually go ahead and do it, you can do it, than being in the status quo of powerlessnesses, and feeling like that it is done and you cannot do it anymore. But I want to just go to the second part of that question. That was, the productivity and resiliency through unlocking this second win. You really have to be resilient. You cannot stop. I think I'd give a good example of a marathon. Essentially, during the first steps or in the first kilometers of the marathon, that is usually the hardest of it all. But when you get to the middle part of the marathon, for example, the 42-kilometer marathon, that is when you start getting accustomed. You get acclimatized of whatever is happening in the marathon, and then the finishing part is now like the most swiftest of part, because your body has already gotten everything. So that is it. When you're going towards that second wind, you have to get to that point where you'll understand that it needs a lot of effort and resiliency for you to get from that aspect of comfort to now getting to that aspect of hardship, and then overcoming that aspect of hardship. And lastly, obstacles. Adversity and everyday obstacles play a role in preparing youth to be catalysts of change. Yes, I totally agree. And why do I say that I agree? Because number one, it builds character. Having to go some of these obstacles and adversity, you're able to gain a lot of character. It teaches you. In fact, I always say that they are meant for us to be successful and not to be in them and be like all those obstacles are meant for us to be successful. So these are fuels, they channel. Number two, it's you learn to really have discomfort. When you get to that point of having these obstacles and adversity, you'll get from a point of that experience that, hey, I have experienced discomfort and now I know how it feels, and I can actually overcome that. When you get to overcome that, yeah. So I think that is all I get to say with regards to that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rani, for your very eloquent answer and and perfect description of essentially what the second wind is. I think you touched quite well and exemplified quite well what we're trying to do by having a webinar like this. We want you guys to see and learn about how to the next step after going through something that seems so difficult, especially like you think the first 100-meter in a 200-meter race is always the hardest. But as soon as you overcome that initial fatigue, you're better, you're acclimated, and you're more better prepared to take on that last 100 meters. And so, yeah, I think that inclusion of that answer was amazing and perfectly said. Now we ask Mr. Ronald Kawadwa to answer this question. You have 5 minutes, and please turn on your camera if you're able to, and IT, if his camera is not able to be turned on, please put his photo up on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, and I'm excited to be here this afternoon from the beautiful Naivasha in Kenya. I was here to speak at the conference. The engagement of trying to look at resilience and productivity is what I want to call the need to reposition to thrive. All of us as human beings, we have gone through a lot of turbulence, and turbulent times call for a different engagement of leadership. And therefore, young people must be able to operate in a changing world that is drastically continuing to mutate itself in response to the multitude of the problems and engagements that we are going through. In many cases, as leaders, entire value chain that we look out for in terms of skills, in terms of relevance, but also amid this disruption like what we went through during COVID, human beings, people like us, become agile and nimble and must take advantage of the huge opportunities that all over the globe. Young people like you, like us, are going through a transition of steady growth that in terms of coping with situations. And this also poses us as leaders, as young people, to seek to become experts at leading ourselves and rebuilding our skills. And that's why I teams and leading to redesign our, I called it repositioning to thrive. That's called you must be able to equip yourself with consistent skills that are going to help you to maneuver through the global challenges. The world now needs to rebuild itself. And therefore, as we try to get back onto the top, number one, we must be able to encourage constructive dissent, something that I call authenticity with skill. The skills that you have. If you are an IT specialist, what are you using your social media platforms to be able to get in there? How are you marketing yourself amongst the people that you have in your call box or in your phone book? Number two, we must realize that we need to be vulnerable during uncertain times, and vulnerability calls for us to be able to look at ambiguity in terms of what is going on in our essence and in our skills, but also to try and demagnify the complexity of issues that are going on. Number three, as young people, I think as we reposition to thrive and go back through these challenges, we must have the courage to take bold decisions. Things that call risks, things that are calling us to learn from our past mistakes. I remembered a few of my friends when we went through COVID is when we realized that actually people are not doing as well as they were portraying themselves to be. And that calls us now to take back into board decisions. What kind of investments that are you doing? What kind of decisions that are you doing in terms of your relationships? These might be social or professional relationships. Number four, we need to create a circle of friends, what I want to call the inner circle, that is going to build our morale, that is going to build our engagement, that's going to build our grit, going to build our grit through this turmoil. Number five, we need to provide tools for all of us, but also for young people and organizations to remove the obstacles of life. We need to be consumed by that success of advancement, that success of engagement. And for me, I think I can sum that turbulent times in what we call repositioning to thrive. And all of us must be able to find that niche that gets us to reposition to go back to where we used to be, but also even make it better than the way I think they usually say, fake it until you make it. We need to go and fake it out there until we are able to make it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that amazing answer. And I hope everyone was listening to those steps and was writing them down in their notebook. So yes, now we'll move on to our speaker-specific questions. And in this section, we'll essentially be asking our speakers sort of like more tailored questions to their expertise on how they could share with us from their expertise ways that we can overcome adversity and unlock this idea of a second wind. So our first speaker that we'll channel to is Miss Mame here. And Mame, through the power of Love Foundation Canada, you help improve the well-being of Ghanaians in Canada and aid young Black women transition into new markets and professional spheres. What is something you have learned that you think defines an individual's full potential? From your work, do you think uncovering a passion for something other than an individual's status quo deters an individual's path to their full potential or advances it? And you have 3 minutes to answer this question, so please be as succinct in your answer as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just give a quick clarification. So I do contribute to improving the well-being of Canadians in general, not just Ghanaians in Canada. So just wanted to give a little clarification on that. Now, moving on to the question, what I have noticed or learned defines an individual's full potential, at least in my experience, is their ability to utilize the potential. Because it's one thing discovering your potential, it's another thing holding on to it, utilizing it for your own benefit, not only that, but for the benefit of your community. Most people know their potential, but they do not utilize it. They say, oh, I have the potential to do this. I have the capability of doing that. I believe that I have the skill to do this. But when it comes to utilization, that becomes an issue. So we find ourselves not walking the talk. We just talk and not really putting it into action. So it's very important that what defines an individual's potential is unlocking that potential and putting that potential into action, because that is the only way we're able to see its outcomes, see its impact, not just on the individual, but on the community as well. I also strongly believe that uncovering a passion does advance an individual's path, because it's within that. I feel, and I was pondering on this before I came, and it's normally through that passion that you're able to fulfill your purpose, right? So normally most of us do 9 to 5s and so on, but maybe your 9 to 5 might not really be what you're passionate about. Your 9 to 5 might not be what your purpose is. So it's important to also uncover another purpose. So for me, my purpose has always been to aid and support Black women and girls. So subsequently, what I did was I discovered that purpose, I discovered that passion to always support Black women and girls in different areas. And through that, I was able to found the Power of Love Foundation Canada, which ideally supports Black women and girls. And I would say that this organization that I founded has actually given me a plethora and myriad of skills like leadership, communication, team build, teamwork, to mention but a few, that I might not really get in the normal status quo or the normal 9 to 5 jobs. So I would say that uncovering a passion does advance an individual's potential, and I would just advise every single person that if you have a passion, and I always say it could be anything. Braiding hair could be a passion that you can use to make money. If you see many of the people that are making waves in today's society, most of them, it was through their passion. You see someone like Beyonce, she's singing because she's passionate about it. That's her purpose. You see many other people that are able to utilize their passion to achieve what their goal, to achieve their dreams. So I would just share that it's very important to uncover your passion and utilize it, because it does bring advancement. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that amazing answer. Yeah, and so uncovering your passion is very much necessary. And like, again, we're trying to stimulate these conversations to really allow people to look within themselves and sort of question, okay, what is it that we think will be most beneficial to benefiting the community or benefiting yourself, which is also benefiting the community indirectly. And like Mame says, uncovering your passion. It's something that is very key. And for those who who might not have a passion, sort of just like like the point of this conversation is to sort of like look within yourself and be able to sort of find that, or like want to explore that at least. So yes, thank you, Mame, for that answer. We will now move on to Ms. Haja Aisatuba. For her question, we asked, the tenets of the second wind state that optimism towards a goal should not falter during times of adversity. How do you believe the gaps in some integral structures in many African countries, or your country of Sierra Leone, affects the survival of that optimism? Can you share some ways African youth can continue to keep alive the ingenuity and innovation even with the impediments we may face?
Thank you very much for this question. I was just listening to, was it the last speaker? Oh my God, Ronald, right? His point about the second win and his steps were very great, and it begs to go back to the first question, which talked about adversity and resilience when it comes to achieving these things. So definitely, with in the African continent, we have like Africa's population like under 30, we have over 50%, and in 2050 Africa is going to be the home of over 40 of the youngest countries in the world. So how that is going to look like depends on how we start making changes now, especially as youth. And going back to the questions, yes, there are a lot of loopholes. For example, I decided to create my product, the reusable sanitary pads, after I visited Norway in 2015. My whole life in Freetown, all I used when I started seeing my period at the age of 11 was disposable pads in the size large. Then I went to Norway and realized, oh my god, there are menstrual cups, there are tampons, there's a sponge, there are flex discs, there are reusable pads, there's so much more. So I embarked on a research to, develop a product that works in my community. And definitely there are a lot of challenges, because the first thing they're like, oh my god, you're a woman under 25. Why do you want to be involved in business? Because we've decided to not mutually, sorry, we've decided to exclude education from entrepreneurship. I'm speaking in the case of Sierra Leone. If you're going to school, you want to be a doctor, you have no business in learning about the law. You have no business in learning about business. So it becomes very hard when you want to get involved in these fields, just in case your plan A doesn't work, and it becomes like really really tough. And like I mentioned in my first answer, you see a lot of people who are passionate, who have techniques, who have skills, but at the end the resources are not there for them, so it becomes really hard for them to pursue the careers they want, or become successful in the ways they want to be. However, in Sierra Leone, we've had not a few, a lot of people who've managed to break boundaries. People like Alhaji Siraj Jallo, who create sustainable briquettes for women and girls to cook, or people who cook, sorry. And we also have somebody like Kelvin Doe, who, invented a radio station. We have a lot of inventors in Sierra Leone, and I was on a talk with DW, Joshua Stevie, a few weeks ago, and we had this inventor who created electricity to power his.
Sorry,
Sorry?
please be wrapping up.
Sorry?
Could you please be wrapping up soon for this question?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said, can you please be wrapping up soon for this specific question?
Yes. So, like I was saying, we do have a Sierra Leonean inventor who invented electricity for the people of Sierra Leone, especially his community. But his challenges are he doesn't have the resources. The government is not willing to, sponsor his project. He doesn't have any source of income, so that just becomes one-time thing. It worked, and he doesn't have ways of improving it, but the solution is still there and it works. So, some ways African youth can continue to keep alive the ingenuity and innovation within the impediments we face. I feel it's the concept of ikigai, a Japanese concept which means the reason for being. So with ikigai, there are many things we can do. It's like starting small, understanding what you can change. Sometimes we have people who want to fix larger problems, bigger solutions. It's okay, but one step at a time. Understanding your goal, understanding the resources you have. I want to sell pads for women all over the world. but I don't have the resources now. So I'll start with women in Sierra Leone, specifically my community. I'll reach out to the people around me and the resources around me. And I believe in the power of education, which I feel education does not just occur in the classroom. Learn from people outside of the classroom, people who did not go to school. Learn from people's experiences. Just don't learn in the form that I'm going to memorize and pass an examination. You learn in a way that 2 years from now, 10 years from now, you remember what you learned. And I'll say to African youth, like the little resources you have, we might think it's not enough to create change, but start with something. Your siblings, your home, your community, your country. You will not realize how much impact you can make if you were to actually utilize the resources within your reach. So it's always good to question the reason of being and look more into the ikigai concept and how do I say, make more changes in whatever way you want to.
Thank you so much for that insightful answer and such a broadly worldly perspective of concepts like Igida. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Now we'll move on to Miss Grace Niambu. And Grace, according to the International Labor Organization, African governments spend less than 4% of their gross domestic product on social protection programs, as opposed to the global average of 13%. People are now much more susceptible to heightened risks of adverse domestic experiences and overall depleted sense of control and agency over their lives. Can you share some mental health initiatives or practices across Africa or in your country of Kenya that you believe counteract the damage done by living through a pandemic with a lack of social protections? And you have 3 minutes to answer this question. So please try and answer within this allotted time. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this question. I think especially when we talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and the situation that happened, a lot of people didn't really acknowledge mental health before that, and even especially in Kenya. Most of the time we perceived it as a Western kind of problem. And now, when COVID came and we were seeing the effects as a human problem, the stress, the anxiety that it brought about, and we were trying to see, okay, how can we create interventions? How can we help our people in terms of working through this, in terms of navigating this? And I feel like a lot of mental health interventions and initiatives actually came up during this time. And I can mainly just speak for Kenya because that's where I am and that's where I practice. For the longest time, as psychologists, we had been pushing the government and trying to, establish like a licensing body in the country or establish like, a full-on mental health act and just trying to see some changes in legislation in terms of mental health, some acknowledgement. And this actually came about now through like the entire COVID era and where now the government was even tapping into providing different opportunities within the government for mental health professionals, acknowledging that this is actually a problem even for the police officers, like being able to hire psychologists for them and acknowledging that they have like a specific set of needs that needs to be acknowledged, that needs to be addressed. And I think different even organizations outside of that, we've seen workplaces, because I've worked with several workplaces that are now even investing in employee mental health and being able to acknowledge that there's a problem, like people are going through it. People are going through it emotionally, financially, mentally, and we need to be able to have conversations in a safe and nurturing environment where we can be able to talk about what we're feeling, to talk about what we're going through, to talk about our challenges, and then be empowered to find the solutions within ourselves because we do have the resources in ourselves and we just need sometimes we just need that help to be able to see the resources that we hold in ourselves. So there are different organizations even offering free counseling services and just psychological help that is going to be able to uplift and empower people. I've worked with an organization that is founded in Nigeria but is providing counseling services to people throughout the African continent, and it's really engaging and empowering to be able to work with practitioners from the entire continent and just to be able to see how all of the changes that we're making are able to kind of reverberate into the lives and the hearts of everyone that we serve and everyone that we work with.
Yeah, thank you very much for providing this very much necessary perspective, especially when we're talking of unlocking your full potential and sort of like looking into yourself, and which is sometimes a very hard thing to do. And I like that you touched on that there are resources out there in Africa, even though we might think that this is such a taboo topic, the topic of mental health and mental wellness and being well. Mental wellness is body wellness, essentially. And so please do explore all the people who are on this call, like all their, I'm sure there are many like free initiatives going around, whether it's in your country or in another country, that can be provided to you if you are going through any type of struggle. So yeah, thank you very much, Grace, for that amazing answer. We now move on to Rani Wukulo of Kenya. And Rani, as a social entrepreneur and business management professional, can you share with the audience the ways that they too can empower youth to take responsibility for their lives and their dreams? Is mentorship and communal inspiration an important factor in continuing to build African economies towards some of the fastest growing economies in the world? You have 3 minutes to answer this question.
Thank you so much. So I'm really gonna be very practical with this question, and I'll
Ronnie,
also focus.
sorry. Are you able to turn your
Oh,
camera on? We can't see you.
uh, okay. I don't know. Let me see. Can you see me?
No, I don't believe.
Really sorry because on my end it's showing it's on. Let
It's
me
showing
try
it's
and
on.
see.
Okay.
Yes.
Then that's
Let me
fine. You
see.
can still answer. IT, we ask that you please show Rennie's photo. Yes, thank you. You can continue.
Um. All right. Sorry about that. So basically, I really want to really be very practical with this question. Uh, and I want to focus on the last bit. I'm sorry. I really wish you could put up the question. IT. Thank you. Um. Just 1 second. Yes, thank you. So I also want to focus on the last part. Is mentorship and communal inspiration an important factor in continuing to build African economies? I mean, towards the fastest growing economies in the world. So this is like a sequel to the former. And number one, as Steve Biko once said, that the most powerful weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And I really resonate with that a lot, because number one, I love what Haja said. She was very practical with what is happening in Sierra Leone. And here in Kenya, I want to mention that most times you get to the 844. We have the 844 system right now, where you get to go through primary school, secondary school, and then you go to campus. And most individuals, even undergraduates, would really testify to the fact that you finish campus and you're like, what next? What am I going to do? You have that knack to finish. You want to go ahead and finish your campus life, but again you go ahead and you're like, what next? So some of these questions are what motivated me and my best friend to actually start up Diversity, where our mission statement is very simple: towards a better community. And specifically why the youth. It's because we as the young people are the leaders of this generation. And just to get a hand of it, by the end of the day, we are trying to teach skills that are not usually taught in schools, from how mommy said, from things like crocheting, things like that produce money, which you'll not necessarily have to be taught in school, things to garden and landscaping, and we are partnering with different organizations just to make sure that these young people are empowered, because by the end of the day, we are living in a state where we feel so oppressed by the economy, the level of inflation, to the level of unemployment right now, and youths do not know who to turn to. So how we empower them is also stepping up, because as all each and every person in this call is a leader, and when we get to step up in whatever role, you don't have to stretch out and ask about so many resources, but whatever you have, that belief is a drive to go ahead and empower youth to take responsibility for their lives. One, mentorship plays a major role, because if we do not have those surface or good mentors right now, how are we going to really connect? How are these youths going to connect to these people? Right now in Kenya, we are approaching towards a general election, and we are going towards that aspect where you do not really know who is the best leader and who is not. Why can't we say, hey, can we go and start afresh? I, Rani, as a leader, what can I do towards my community here in Kasarani or where I am in Nairobi, and be able to impact them towards making the right decision and not thinking from a tribal basis. So mentorship plays a huge role towards changing our economies, and I'm looking forward to study a master's in international business, because by the end of the day, now understanding the global economy, I can be able to impact it on the Kenyan economy and understand what are the ins and outs or of how it's going to affect our economy. So mentorship, inspiration, these are some of the things that for me I consider such a big factor in this stage. And that's why as diversity, I think we are going to play this role over time to ensure that many young people who do not know what to do after their studies or even during their studies can actually get to know that there are skills that we can learn that can actually develop us, and enable us to get money. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful answer. I really loved how you touched on sort of the communal aspect of Africans, because I feel like as Africans, we are very communal. We don't really have sort of an individualistic mindset. So sort of even having these conversations or just knowing that, like, either, well, at least for me, at least growing up in Sierra Leone, it was a very communal space, and having conversations with your friends or your neighbors or your family members about African development, and sort of empowering yourself to empower other youth, to enable other youth to be empowered, is very important, because the thing about it is starting the conversation is really what propels us towards change. So yes, thank you very much, Rani, for that answer. We will now move on to Mr. Ronald Kawadwa for his question. And for you, how do you believe young Africans can shed doubts about venturing into saturated markets that seem very daunting and difficult to achieve success, especially considering your professional expertise? You have 3 minutes to answer this question, and please answer within the allotted time. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you all the panelists that are here. I think the more okay. Thank you, Maria, and I think that can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Marie, can you confirm that you can hear me very well? Okay,
Yes,
okay. I think the critical skill and ideal to anticipate is that young people must understand that living today and managing the challenges of today requires us to tap into our thoughts and ideas. And when we tap into and nurture our ideas and thoughts, we require different leadership competencies and structures. Young people must understand that we must be quickly reskilled for us to be able to optimize the essence of what we need to see in the world where we are. And once we start reskilling, and there are many opportunities of reskilling today. For example, at Harvard, 99% of the courses are now having replica online engagements that any of the young peoples can go in and do. And therefore, we need to tap into new fields that are able to address the needs and the concerns of our world today. Number two, we must discover that many organizations and cultures and systems and structures need to be supported by ideas of this current generation. And therefore, we must maintain what I call relevance it's critical for us as young people to move along with the rest of the changes that the world has brought in terms of systems and structures. And therefore, if we are to achieve success, number one, we need to be able to nurture our thoughts and ideas in a way that touches the current trends of people's hearts and minds. Number two, we must discover that there is much more to this world than having our previous skills. We call it the excellence of yesterday cannot work today. And therefore, it's important for us to go back and continuously reskill in the competences that are able to address the needs and concerns of our world today. I think once we do that, then young people are going to go out consistently to venture into the unsaturated world and the structures and markets that seem to be difficult, because we are now trying to reposition ourselves to become more relevant than the way we are before. And once we do that, then I think the world will be even a smaller place for you as young people and us as young people to go into addressing the agility, the volatility of this world, the ambiguity, and the complex nature and situations that are coming.
Yes, thank you very much, Ronald, for that answer. Yeah, I think it's really important that we as young people know that our voice is important in these conversations towards African environment. You should always know that your voice is important, especially in our current climates and sort of how we are sometimes overlooked in conversations towards bettering and advancing our own skills towards the development of Africa. So now we will sort of have a few, we have one question here. I can actually see the chat. We're gonna move on to an audience Q&A. So participants, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat as quickly as possible. And then we will direct them to, or I will direct them to the speaker that you're asking, or just to any speaker of my choosing. So speakers, please be prepared to answer. The first question I see right now is from Pascal Onyango from Kenya. Pascal says that she has multiple projects to work on. The only big challenge she has is funding. How can she get funded through grants or any way? Does any speaker have expertise on this? And can you guide her on links or contacts to top international sponsors? I will direct this question to Haja. If you're able to answer, please do. If not, any other speaker is able to answer this question.
Yes, when I was in college, I was a student entrepreneur, so I did apply for a lot of funding in the US. However, there are a lot of organizations that put out applications out there based on the field you're working on. But sometimes I say to people, it's not always about getting grants or free funding. You can also like consider it an investment, get a loan, and maybe based on the sustainability of your business, be able to pay with time. Like for every 2 years, you pay a certain amount, maybe with interest or not. It's just trying to talk to the right people. I know you can go on Google and search. I know that's a very vague or basic answer, but LinkedIn is a great platform. You try to categorize your business, understand your target audience, understand whether it's something that gets a lot of funding. For example, agriculture. Agriculture gets a lot of funding globally, no matter what part of the world you are. But something like technology or beauty and care, beauty care, it's different. So just try to categorize your business, how much you will need, and how much you will need to start, how much you need for it to become sustainable, and try to communicate this if you have a mentor, or post it on LinkedIn. Honestly, there are a lot of opportunities on LinkedIn, as long as you get to understand what department or category you're working on. And sometimes the World Bank or the UN, they have all these grants they give, and sometimes schools. For example, Smith College in the US, they do a business competition for women. New York has a business competition, like just in China, there are global competitions for students all over the world, but most of these funding opportunities are for students or people who are embarked in research. Or we can talk more after this if you don't mind. I can send you links.
Thank you very much, Haja, for answering Pascal's question. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. So if you do have a question, please continue to type them in the chat only. Please don't unmute yourself to ask a question. Just we ask for an orderly event. But since there are no other questions from our audience, okay, we have another question, sorry, from Hermela. And Hermela asks, the opportunities which are available for the youth in Africa are taken by the capital city youth. What do you do to include and share these opportunities for other youth? Hermela, can you please, or can one of our speakers please answer this question? I'll repeat it again in case you didn't hear me the first time. So Hermela asked that the opportunities available to African youth are taken by the capital city youth. I'm not really sure what this means. Can you please clarify what you mean by that, Hermela? And she asks, what do you do to include and share these opportunities for other youths? So can Mr. Rani Mukulo please answer this question? The question is also in the chat, so you on your end of things, you can probably read it better from there.
Thank you so much, Hamila. I think what she or he means is that most of these opportunities available for the youths are for those youths who are found in urban areas and not in the rural setups. And I pretty much also agree, but also will disagree, because by the end of the day, the governments in different countries have laid all these opportunities for every other youth in the country. And the question was, what do you do to include and share these opportunities for other youths? Number one, I think also number it also I'd also want to address this, that it has to be on how the government rolls out these opportunities, because and how you want to really network and be able to source out for what are the opportunities available and what region is specific. For instance, in Kenya, just addressing to what Pascal had asked, we have the National Youth Development Empowerment Fund that most youths are not aware about, that actually has been set aside to assist youths who have startups, and you're able to get loans that are very accessible, considering that the idea you have is very feasible. So for me, I think also just getting to have that knack to identify these opportunities, because most of the times right now we live in a digital space, and I always say that the digital space is the future for everything. So even that person who might be in the rural setup has access to the phone. So we need to also, as leaders, we can also try to bring such opportunities to them throughout such events, be able to advise, be able to share, be able to connect with the local governments and see how we can actually go ahead, and these youths in these areas can tap into those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rani, for answering Hermela's question. I hope that answer was fulfilled your desire. And now I really enjoyed how you touched on going into spaces that you're traditionally not familiar with, especially if you're in rural settings of Africa, where at least in Sierra Leone, at least I know there's not a lot of access to digital tools. And so even just going to your community and seeing, asking people in your community what are the resources they're using in order to build their whatever social enterprises, sorry, or whatever passion it is they feel to build on, can be important because you never know what you could learn from the people in your community. So again, all about building community and sort of tapping into what you might not think are conventional methods of like helping you in order to achieve your full potential. Since I don't see any more questions in the chat, can we please move on to the next round of speaker-specific questions? Thank you very much, IT. So now for Mame, we will ask you, what do you believe will be the impact on public health in Africa if every young African in Africa and the diaspora as well unlock their second wind? Mame, can you please take 3 minutes to answer this question? And we also ask that you turn on your camera.
So I strongly believe that public health will have an immense impact in Africa if every youth got was able. Sorry, this question is quite. There is two different aspects because. Okay, so I strongly believe that every youth in Africa has that potential to unlock their second wind. And in many ways, public health can be factored in different aspects of even unlocking that second wind. We know that when the pandemic hit, many people were affected, and that was where there was a lot of discussions concerning public health. So even by unlocking that second wind, people will be able to discover how their contributions, their passions can help to impact public health, especially in that African space, to ensure that illnesses are being mitigated and also to ensuring that the lives of populations is being advanced. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. And so, yeah, like basically, like I was saying, like paying attention and prioritizing your own like health, bodily health or mental health, and through this second wind, whatever it may be, by unlocking this potential does impact the public health of whatever country or space that you're living in. It is very important that we understand that we are very important catalyst in the whole global scheme. And we're all sort of like working beings in this cycle of life, and we all have impacts on each other, on other people. And so it is important that we realize this and do our best to try and orient ourselves and build ourselves to be better individuals to enact this change. And so IT, I think we'll move on to the question for Ronald Kawadwa, because Haja has already answered a question from IT, from the Q&A. Thank you. Could you guys?
Sorry, Marie, is it my choice?
Yes, it is. IT is just trying to get your question up on the screen right now. And this is for the second round of questions, please.
Okay, I don't see the question yet, but let me wait. Oh, yes, I see the IT is continuing to move it away.
One more slide, IT, I believe. IT, next slide, please. The question is for Ronald.
I don't see the question as yet, IT.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so thank you. As you have heard that, yeah, I'm Group MD at Coach Africa, and at Coach Africa we envision a generation where we are nurturing excellence and excellent results. We believe that the excellence of yesterday cannot work for today. And therefore, some of the key coaching tips that African youth can practice to venture into a more self-fulfilling way is, number one, there is need to have direction. About direction, I'm talking about young people and all of us coming up with goals, purposeful goals in life. And these goals can be spread out in the 5 areas. My wife usually gives 5 areas of life where you set goals. One must be relationship, the other must be your spiritual life, the other is your social life, the other is your investment life, and then also your personal life. You must have clear goals that step you into the vision that you want to have. Number 2, you need to build a support mechanism in terms of a team that has what I would define as the inner circle culture of your influence. People that will always be there to support your vision, to cheer you up. It's important for you to have multiple friends, but it's also important for you to identify out of those multiple friends, who are those that I'm bringing into my inner circle that are going to be my supportive, positive team to guide me through this vision, to be able to come out, friends that come out and tell you, here you faltered and you will not succeed. Many times we create a lot of friends that are cosmetic friends, and they never want to give us that value engagement and say you are making a wrong decision. One of the coaching tips as young people to develop that. Number 2, number 3, develop what I call daily motivation. Go out and come back, everyday motivation. Every time you go out, get a pen or paper and reflect on, what have I been able to achieve today? What is that one thing that I've been able to come out with today that gives me the comfortability that I went out and created value for myself, but also for value for other people? Number 4, instill in yourself excellent communication skills. Instill in yourself communication that drives you to be able to be accountable to yourself, but also accountable to other people in the line that you go. Once you are able to touch some of these and or even all of those, I think these are some of those coaching tips that I can offer you as young people and offer us as young people that will help you to venture into a more self-fulfilling pathway. It's important to be accountable every day, but also it's also important to be accountable to the people that you have in life. Do not take on baggage that you will not be able to sort out yourself as an individual. Baggage that is going to bog you down. There are many times when we want to do so many things for other people, but what are you doing for yourself? Something that you call self-love, and self-love should not be selfishness, but should be that self-love that you say, how do I celebrate myself? How do I motivate myself? How do we like? Because what you are able to be in yourself is what you can be able to give out to others. Once you're able to master some of these and even develop them into a culture, into a 5 a.m. club that you develop every day, I think you will be able to garner more engagement, more fulfillment in life as you pursue your dreams with excellence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronald, for those tips. Again, guys, you should really be writing these down. You're getting key tips to just be the best person you can be in our journey towards like African development and becoming like better individuals, whether you want to contribute to African development or not. These are amazing tips for you to be able to realize your self potential and be self-sufficient and be able to be a catalyst for change. So our closing question as we're finishing up our webinar, which will be directed to all of our speakers, we now ask, what would you suggest to African youth who consistently persevere and adopt a second wind to survive in what is sometimes a tough climate, to break through in terms of success, especially as a youth in Africa, where our visions can be excluded or overlooked? We will first go to Mami. I think she is the first person to answer this question, and we ask that you answer within 3 minutes. So Mame, please answer this question within the allotted time and turn your camera on. Thank you. Is Mame still on the call? Let me see. I believe she is, but I don't believe she's here right now. So we'll move on to Haja. Haja, if you're still on the call, we ask that you please answer this question within 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I want to commend those youth that are definitely trying to adopt a second wind. I know it's very difficult, especially with the ongoing situations, but one thing I always say to people is use your network. You don't know how your network will inspire you, whether they're your schoolmates, your professors, your parents, people you've been acquainted with. Talk to people, learn how to communicate your ideas. For me, that's what I did. Most of my success for my business is because I talked to a professor or an advisor or friend who recommends me to somebody who recommends me. It just keeps on going like snowball. So keep on doing that. And again, I'll say do the concept of ikigai, like start small. Really start small for the sake of your mental health. Some goals are very big and it's okay to break it down. Slow progress is still progress, slow success is still success. Like everything doesn't happen at once. So whatever brings you the peace of mind, like do it one step at a time. I'll say that to everybody. If you want to do it all together and you feel you can handle it, you're in that capacity, you have the resources, that's fine. But I feel the fourth step is understanding your connections and how you can gain resources from them. Of course, it has to be a symbiotic relationship because there's something you can add to their life as well. But just keep on like telling people what you're doing, and one day somebody might just fund your business from nowhere. Who knows?
Thank you very much, Haja, for that answer. And we're talking from a seasoned and experienced social entrepreneur who is making waves in her country. And so, again, you are getting the tips of life right here, everyone. Now we ask that Mr. Rennie, sorry, apologies. We ask that Miss Grace Aniambu answers the question to the best of her abilities within 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, I think my main suggestion would be about defining your own, what success means to you, because success is different for every individual. So being able to define what success is for you will be able to help you know, okay, which mentors do I need to work with? Who do I need to contact in terms of this space? What, just like Haja was saying, if you're going into business, you need to define the scope of your business. So even when it comes to success, setting your goal. What is your definition of success? Then now setting like smaller goals. Like if it's in terms of monetary wise, and you want to be making what 1 million a year, and now seeing how you can be able to do that, breaking it down in terms of the 12 months. So being able to define what success means to you, and then seeing how you can be able to surround yourself with people who can encourage you, motivate you, and lift you towards that success and your defined success. And my second thing would be empowering and encouraging yourself. As much as we lean on our people and as much as we have, support systems that are there for us, most of the time we spend 24 hours with ourselves. And so if your self-talk is negative, then most of the time, regardless of what your other, like the people around you are saying, you will still not be empowered. You still won't have the belief in yourself to be able to go out there and make the steps that you need to make to be able to create the life that you want to create. So being able to talk to yourself in a positive, being able to encourage yourself, being able to feed yourself and to pour into yourself as much as you pour into others. Because it really does take just being able to change your own mental state, change your own perception to be able to change the life of someone else. And that trickles down into the lives of everyone else. Because just like Mr. Rani was saying, we are all leaders in our own spheres of influence. So being able to change my perspective or my mindset would be able to change my friend's mindset, would be able to change her friend's mindset. And now it trickles down towards everything else that we're doing. So we do have the power to be able to create change, and we just need to be able to tap into ourselves and find out, okay, how can I be able to not only better myself, better my people, and as well as what is success for me. Thank you.
Yes, something that really was highlighted to me in what you said, Grace, was self-talk. Sometimes we are always our hardest critics, and I'm victim of that, and I'm sure a lot of you here are also victims of that. And so, especially like prioritizing yourself and not being too hard on yourself sometimes, because it can be easy to fall into that self-deprecating cycle where you're sort of looking at yourself and only the negative and ignoring all the positives. And one thing that I try to do is try and, again, be present in the moment and see that you are full of the skills that you need to be able to realize what it is that you want in your life. And so, yes, thank you very much, Grace, for that answer. We now would like to hear from Mr. Rani Wakulo for what would be your suggestion to African youth who
Thank
always second wind. You may speak now. And in 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I think every young person and everyone basically who is actually in the, in the scope of adopting the second wind deserves a standing ovation, and because it's not easy indeed. Number one, have clear, distinct, and realistic goals. It's okay to shoot for the stars. We all shoot for the stars, but also it's okay not to be okay, basically, because sometimes you'll before you get there you will fall. You will actually fall, and you'll not be able to really pick up yourself if you do not have that self drive. So also to understand that failing, or rather you not being able to actually get there at whatever time frame you've set for yourself, does not mean that you have failed. It just means that that is a postponed success. So you have to go throughout that journey. Number two, your network is your net worth. I know that's such a cliche statement, but it's one of my favorite statements, and it's very, very true. So we have different forms and ways of networking skills today. And just from a simple shout out in LinkedIn, or from us to a simple email, to so many avenues right now that we have, even here in this event, that really facilitates networking. You can actually get to that other aspect of understanding, hey, that this is an area that I'm not familiar with, but we have Haja here who is familiar with this area. We have Grace who is familiar with this area. We have Mame, and any other person in this setup who is familiar with what you attribute or what you want to achieve in your second wind, somebody who you can relate to. So I believe also that that's a very good aspect. It sets you apart from so many other people. And number three, I think by the end of the day, never give up. I think that is what, personally, that is my drive every single day. I tell myself that, and I look myself at the mirror and tell myself that, hey, what is it that I achieved in 2021 that I can do better in 2022? What is it that you achieved in 2021 that you can do better in 2022 as you adopt your second wind, as you traverse through this journey? So I think that will be my closing remark in that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer, Rani. And again, something that stood out to me when you were speaking was your network is your net worth, which it is. And I think like all the speakers here have highlighted today, your community really will help you build whatever it is that you really would like to realize or see in the world. And so touching on this is a very important. And yes, we ask that now that Miss Mame, if she is still on the call, to please answer this question. And Mr. Ronald Kawadwa, if you are still on the call, we ask that you please answer the closing question as well.
Okay, thank you, Maria. And let me close that very quickly because I'm going to another call. What do young people need to make sure that they stay on top of success?
and preserve the second wind. Number one, and I know that all of our key specialists have talked about that, we must develop the right people. And when we talk about developing the right people, we are talking about attitude, knowledge, and skills. We must go out there as young people and find an adopted new attitude towards life, an attitude of never giving up, an attitude of always not settling for the worst or for any mediocrity in there, an attitude of driving excellence towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. Number two, we need to find orientation, the right orientation and induction. How do we fit into this new world? How do we develop new systems of years and culture? Because like I mentioned in the beginning, the excellence yesterday is no longer relevant today, and ways of doing that. Number three, we must build confidence and self-esteem. And this can only be done when you have built capacity in terms of your knowledge and expertise, when you have built the greatest networks and relationship, and that is not relevant, become a new bankable person. If you have not been bankable, develop that new bankability. Four, drive yourself into a new culture of understanding, a new culture of involvement of critical stakeholders, a new culture that is able to build the alignment of the purpose that you have. Once you have that new culture, it will clarify on your strategies as an individual. It will clarify on your new mission and direction. And personally, you'll be so enthused because you have a new personal vision and a career mission. And that for me would be my parting words. Thank you for inviting me, and I enjoyed this engagement.
Thank you so much, Ronald, for that answer. And yes, like everyone here today has heard, building that community, investing in yourself and your time and your skills is very important. And that's why we want you, or YALDA here would like for you to continue to join our events, to continue to learn how to build this and explore unexplored domains that you might not be familiar with. And again, IT, we ask that you move to the next slide, please. We just really want you guys to be able to continue to build on this phenomenon of pushing through your obstacles, seizing any goals you hope for. And because within our bodies, there are sources of energy and physical and mental strength that we never tax. And eventually at some points when the going gets tough, I guess if you can say, these sources of mental and physical strength do realize within our lives, or are realized within our lives. And they're able to really show us that once you believe in yourself, we are the catalyst of change in our own lives and in other people's lives. And as we depart, we really want you guys to be able to reflect on that and to continue to build on that and building on this community building and inspiring yourself towards productivity and greater excellence, especially for the community and for Africa's development. And as we're closing off, I thank all of our speakers here today for their amazing contributions. This has been a great talk. I have learned so much just from like the start to the finish. You guys are amazing, and thank you for your work in your own respective countries. We thank the participants for taking time out of your day to join us here today for this like hour and 45 minutes. And I leave you guys with the parting words to stay safe and protect your well-being always. And just believe in yourself also, because you are capable and able and to enact change. So thank you everyone for this amazing talk. And I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Thank you. And continue to join YALDA's webinars. We thank you, speakers. And yes, goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.